Hello, morning. This morning I want to talk about the purpose of philosophy. People, I often see on a few of the philosophy sites, people often question the purpose of philosophy. And even my ma always says to me, why are you studying that philosophy? What use is it to you? What money is in it? How is that going to make you any money? Maybe you should drop that and do something that's going to make you some money. And I say, ma, I don't care about the money, but the reason I study philosophy is because I think if you want to change something, you should first understand how it works. So if you want to bring about change in the universe, I think you should first study and understand how the universe works, and then it's a lot easier to determine the nature of change when you understand the nature of change. For instance, if you want to map an engine, it's a lot easier if you understand how the engine works. Because if you don't understand how the engine works, you're not going to be very successful increasing the performance of it. Or with the body, to say it's the very same as we're a macronism of the universe. We're a small version of the universe, because the universe scaled down. We are the universe. Just as I say, everything is energy and starts from a source. It goes out like that. So we're a small version of the universe. It's on that scale, is to say, but that's another matter. So if we start with the body, if we want to bring about change in the body, if we have a knowledge of how the body works and a knowledge of nutrition, it's a lot easier to determine the nature of change in the body. As to determine the shape of your physique, or to change the way that you think. But back to philosophy and the universe. So when you realize how the universe works, it's a lot easier, as I said, to determine the nature of change. And the first thing to realize is everything is energy, and that we are energy. And we are energy as matters. We are matter, which is energy stored. So if you want, and everything then, all matter is in a constant state of flux. Everything in the universe is in a constant state of flux. And that constantly changing. And you can accelerate that change by applying force to matter. And you can, and the nature of that change can be determined by the nature of the force. So when you start studying the nature of change, you start looking and you start saying to yourself, for instance, things like yin and yang, and categorical imperative, and you say to yourself, oh, that's what it is. That's what the nature change is. Oh, emotions are the nature of change. You start and you say to yourself, oh, emotions are a force of nature, because the emotions impact on the body. And as Hume said, how we feel, we act. How we feel determine how we act. So our emotions determine on how we act. So our emotions are a force of nature, and they determine the nature of change, because we act according to our feelings. And you start saying to yourself, oh, that's what it is, that's what it is, and that's what it is. And after a while, you start saying to yourself that there's not one thing that determines the nature of change or the nature of being. It's a culmination of things. It's a number of factors. And when you start noticing one by one the change one thing makes, the change another thing makes, and then you start being able to put them all together, and then you can start noticing that it's like alchemy. Like, you can start saying that everything is connected in the universe, and how everything working together brings about the nature of change. And when you understand this, then you can start determining the nature of change. So, as I say, everything starts with the thinking. So that's really where everything has to start, at source. Because our thought processes determine the chemical makeup of the body, and the chemical makeup of the body determine our emotions, and our emotions determine on how we become the force. We become the force. that impacts on the world. We become the nature of change, and it starts with our thoughts, then our emotions, and then on our actions. And once we realise this, then we can start to realise that we can determine the nature of change. And when we realise that we can determine the nature of change, we can realise that we can take it any way we want. For instance, at the moment, we can determine that fear is a choice, love is a choice, stress is a choice, and all these things determine the nature of change. For instance, fear at the moment. For example, how we use our phone is a choice, and as I say, everything is the thinking of the individual is directly proportional to the thinking of society. So, for instance, how we use our phone determines on how we change, on how we evolve. And then on a larger scale, on a societal level, how we use the media determines the nature of change. And how this comes together is how we are using the media at the moment. How are we using the media at the moment? And the way we're using the media at the moment is what we're spreading is fear. And we could use it because words are like spells. Words are like spells, and everything starts with the word, because the way our brain interprets energy is it first comes into thought processes, which are words, and then the way we speak, transforms the energy, which first comes through our senses, which is thoughts, and then as we speak, this transforms the energy into a more powerful energy, because it determines on how we impact on others. So it changes the chemical makeup of others. So for instance, like if I was to call someone derogatory names and they were to get angry, you're changing it changes the chemical makeup of their body, which in turn causes them to have an emotion, anger, and then maybe rage, and then they act on this, and this has a ripple effect. It goes on to impact on others. It impacts on their environment, on the world, which in turn goes full circle, comes back on them, if you know what I mean. Everything goes in circle. So what I'm saying is it's how we use these words and the medium in which we use to transmit these words determines the nature of change. Do you know what I mean? So when we use these words to spread fear, for instance, like things like the coronavirus and the flu, and we start to create an epidemic, a pandemic. So for instance, if we had no media, there would be nothing about this flu. We wouldn't be able to create this epidemic, this pandemic, and start really, you know, because it escalates because of a ripple effect, because it's fear which we then transfer to others. You know what I mean? We need to look at how we're using our words and how we're using the media, how we're using our phones, how we're using the media, because this is what determines the nature of change. Do you understand me? That's today's video. Like, I'm trying to explain through philosophy how everything works. That starts with the thinking. It starts from source. So the source is energy, which our brain translates into thoughts, which we translate into words or actions, which impacts on our greater environment. We now have the media, which translates, which magnifies the ripple effect and creates a greater impact on how we impact on the world, how we use our words. And what I'm saying is we could use these words for love, fear, anger, And right now we're using it for fear. That's my point. That's this morning's video. Right now we're using it for fear. We're spreading fear. And when fear is what's determining the nature of change, I can tell you the change is not good. Not in the individual and not in the society. That's this morning's video.